First contact. The massive starship Zephyr glided silently through the inky void of space, its sleek form barely visible against the backdrop of twinkling stars. Inside, the ship hummed with activity as its crew of Galactic Union cleaners went about their daily routines. These weren't just any cleaners, they were the elite, tasked with maintaining the utmost hygiene standards across the known universe. Zix, a young and eager Proximan, scurried down the corridors, her forearms laden with an assortment of cleaning supplies. Her iridescent scales shimmered under the ship's soft lighting as she made her way to the bridge. It was her first day as part of the prestigious cleaning crew, and she was determined to make a good impression. As she entered the bridge, Zix's large, multifaceted eyes widened in awe. The view screen before her displayed a breathtaking vista of swirling galaxies and distant nebulae. But it wasn't the cosmic beauty that caught her attention. It was the small, blue-green planet that hung in the center of the screen. "Ah, Zix, right on time," chirped Captain Blip, a rotund Velusian whose gelatinous form quivered with each syllable. "What do you make of our latest discovery?" Zix set down her cleaning supplies and approached the view screen, her antennae twitching with curiosity. "It's beautiful, Captain. But what is it?" Blip's eye stalks swiveled towards her, a hint of excitement in his voice. "This, my dear Zix, is what the locals call Earth. It's a Class M planet, teeming with life, including a sentient species known as humans." Zix's mandibles clicked in surprise. "Humans, are they? Clean." The captain chuckled, a sound like bubbles popping in viscous liquid. "That's what we're here to find out. The Galactic Union has tasked us with assessing the hygiene levels of this newly discovered civilization. If they meet our standards, they may be considered for membership." As Zix absorbed this information, the ship's sensors began to beep urgently. Lieutenant Scorp, a lanky arachnoid, skittered over to the console. "Captain, we're picking up unusual energy signatures from the planet's surface. It appears to be water." "Water?" Blip's gelatinous form rippled with intrigue. "Fascinating. Can we get a closer look?" Scorp's 8 eyes blinked in rapid succession as he manipulated the controls. The view screen zoomed in, focusing on a suburban area of a large city. As the image sharpened, Zix gasped. There, in crystal-clear detail, was a human dwelling, and through a window, they could see a most peculiar sight: a human standing under a stream of water, rubbing some sort of foamy substance all over its body. What are they doing?" Zix asked, her voice a mix of confusion and fascination. Captain Blip's eye stalks quivered with excitement. "If I'm not mistaken, we're witnessing a human hygiene ritual. They call it showering." The bridge fell silent as the crew watched, mesmerized by the strange spectacle. The humans seemed to be thoroughly enjoying the experience, singing and dancing under the cascade of water. Zix felt an inexplicable urge to reach out and touch the human, to understand this bizarre yet intriguing practice. "Captain," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I think we need to study this phenomenon more closely." Blip nodded, his gelatinous form jiggling with agreement. "Indeed, Zix. This showering could be the key to understanding human cleanliness. Lieutenant Scorp, prepare a stealth observation pod. We're going in for a closer look." As the crew bustled into action, Zix couldn't tear her eyes away from the view screen. The human had finished its shower and was now wrapping itself in a large, fluffy cloth. She marveled at the efficiency and thoroughness of the process. "Zix," Captain Blip called, snapping her out of her reverie. "I want you to lead the observation team. Your fresh perspective and keen eye for cleanliness make you the perfect candidate for this mission." Zix's antennae stood straight up in surprise. Me, Captain, but I'm just a junior cleaner." Blip's eye stalks curved into what Zix assumed was a smile. Sometimes, the freshest eyes see what seasoned ones miss. Besides, your enthusiasm for this discovery is exactly what we need. Are you up for the challenge? Zix straightened her posture, all 4 of her arms snapping to attention. "Yes, Captain. I won't let you down." As Zix made her way to the stealth pod bay, her mind raced with possibilities. What other hygiene rituals did humans practice? How did they maintain cleanliness in their daily lives? And most intriguingly, what did it feel like to experience this showering firsthand? The stealth pod was a marvel of Galactic Union technology, a sleek, spherical vessel no larger than a human automobile, capable of bending light around itself to achieve near-perfect invisibility. Zix climbed inside, along with 2 other crew members, Gloop, a slimoid scientist specializing in xenobiology, and Best, a mechaniform engineer responsible for the pod's systems. As the pod detached from the Zephyr and descended towards Earth's atmosphere, Zix felt a mix of excitement and nervousness flutter in her thorax. This was it, her first real mission, a chance to make first contact with an entirely new species. The pod pierced through the clouds, the sprawling cityscape coming into view below them. Best's metallic digits danced across the control panel, guiding them towards the suburban area they had observed earlier. "Remember," Gloop gurgled, his gelatinous form shifting anxiously, "we're here to observe only. No direct contact with the humans." Zix nodded, but she couldn't shake the feeling that this mission would be anything but simple observation. As they hovered near the human dwelling, Zix activated the pod's advanced sensory array. Instantly, a holographic display sprang to life, showing detailed scans of the house and its occupants. "Fascinating," Gloop bubbled, his form rippling with excitement. "It appears the humans have designated specific areas for different hygiene practices. Look here, this room seems to be dedicated entirely to waste elimination and cleansing rituals." Zix leaned in, her multifaceted eyes taking in every detail. The room in question, which they would later learn was called a bathroom, was indeed a hub of cleanliness. Shiny porcelain fixtures, gleaming metal faucets, and an array of colorful bottles and tools filled the space. "But what about the showering?" Zix asked, her antennae twitching with curiosity. "How often do they perform this ritual?" As if on cue, a human entered the bathroom. The alien observers watched in fascination as the human disrobed and stepped into a glass enclosure. With a turn of a knob, water began to cascade from above. "Incredible," Best buzzed, his optical sensors whirring as he zoomed in. "They voluntarily subject themselves to a high-pressure liquid spray. But why?" They continued to watch as the human lathered up with various substances, scrubbing and rinsing in a mesmerizing dance of cleanliness. Zix found herself utterly captivated by the process, her desire to experience it firsthand growing stronger by the second. As the human finished their shower and stepped out, wrapping themselves in a large, absorbent cloth, Zix couldn't contain her excitement any longer. "We have to try it," she exclaimed, her forearms gesticulating wildly. "How can we truly understand their cleanliness if we don't experience it ourselves?" Gloop's gelatinous form quivered with alarm. "Absolutely not. We're here to observe, not interact. The risks of contamination." But Zix was already formulating a plan. "We'll use the stealth suits," she interrupted, her mind racing. "We can enter the dwelling when it's unoccupied, use their shower, and leave without a trace. It's the only way to gather comprehensive data on human hygiene practices." Best's metallic features remained impassive, but there was a hint of intrigue in his synthesized voice. "While risky, Zix's plan does have merit from a research perspective. Our understanding of human cleanliness would be significantly enhanced by first-hand experience." Gloop's form rippled with indecision. But the protocol. "Sometimes," Zix said, echoing Captain Blip's earlier words, "we need to think outside the standard protocols to make real discoveries. Isn't that what great scientists do?" After a moment of tense silence, Gloop's form settled into a resigned slump. "Very well, but we must exercise extreme caution. One misstep could jeopardize the entire mission, and potentially relations with this new species." With the decision made, the trio set about preparing for their clandestine expedition. They donned their stealth suits, form-fitting garments that bent light around them, rendering them nearly invisible to the human eye. They waited patiently, monitoring the house's occupants through their sensors. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the last human left the dwelling. "Now's our chance," Zix whispered, her antennae quivering with anticipation. They exited the pod, their stealth suits shimmering as they adjusted to the Earth's atmosphere. Zix led the way, her four arms working in perfect coordination to manipulate the unfamiliar door handle. As they entered the house, they were immediately assaulted by a cacophony of new sensations. Strange scents filled the air, some pleasant, others less so. The texture of the floor beneath their feet was unlike anything they had experienced on their homeworlds or the sterile environment of their ship. They made their way to the bathroom, each step filled with a mix of scientific curiosity and nervous energy. As they entered the tiled room, Zix's multifaceted eyes darted from one strange object to another. "Look at all these cleaning implements," she marveled, gesturing to the array of bottles, brushes, and tools arranged neatly on various surfaces. The humans must take their hygiene very seriously. Gloop oozed towards the shower enclosure, his gelatinous form rippling with a mix of fascination and apprehension. "I suppose this is where the showering takes place. But how do we activate it?" Best stepped forward, his metallic digits extending towards the shiny knobs. "Based on our observations, I believe these control the water flow and temperature. Shall we experiment?" Zix nodded eagerly, her forearms already reaching for various bottles of soaps and shampoos. "Yes, let's do it. For science, of course." As Best manipulated the knobs, a sudden burst of water sprayed from the showerhead, causing all three aliens to jump back in surprise. Gloop's form quivered violently, small droplets of his gelatinous body splattering against the tile. "Careful," he gurgled anxiously. "We don't know what effect Earth water might have on our biology." But Zix was already stepping forward, her curiosity overcoming her caution. She extended one arm, letting the warm water cascade over her iridescent scales. A shiver of pleasure ran through her body. It's wonderful," she exclaimed, her voice filled with wonder. "Quick, hand me one of those bottles. I want to experience the full showering ritual." As Zix lathered herself with the fragrant soap, reveling in the novel sensation, Best and Gloop exchanged worried glances. They had come here to observe, to gather data, but in their excitement, they had crossed a line. They were no longer passive observers, but active participants in human culture. Suddenly, a noise from outside the bathroom froze them in their tracks. The unmistakable sound of a door opening, followed by footsteps. "Someone's home." Gloop bubbled in panic, his form losing cohesion in his distress. Zix's eyes widened in alarm. They were trapped, covered in soap, their stealth suits compromised by the water, and with a human approaching. In that moment, she realized that their simple mission of observation had just become infinitely more complicated. As the footsteps drew nearer, Zix's mind raced. Their first contact with humans was about to happen in the most unexpected and potentially disastrous way possible. How would they explain their presence? How would the humans react to finding aliens using their shower? The bathroom door began to open, and Zix braced herself for what was to come. Whatever happened next would undoubtedly change the course of both human and alien history forever. As the human silhouette appeared in the doorway, Zix realized that their mission to understand human cleanliness had inadvertently opened the door to a much greater adventure, one that would test the limits of interspecies communication, understanding, and perhaps even friendship. The human's jaw dropped, eyes widening in shock as they took in the bizarre scene before them. For a moment, time seemed to stand still, the only sound the continued splash of water from the still-running shower. Zix, covered in soap bubbles, her iridescent scales glistening under the bathroom lights, raised all four of her arms in what she hoped was a universal gesture of peace. Greetings, human. We come, clean." Cultural misunderstanding. The humans stood frozen in the doorway, their eyes darting between the three alien figures crowded into their bathroom. Zix, still covered in soap suds, tried to maintain a friendly posture despite her rising panic. Gloop had retreated to a corner, his gelatinous form quivering with anxiety, while Best's metallic body emitted a low hum of distress. After what felt like an eternity, the human finally found their voice. What? What are you? They stammered, that hand groping blindly for something to defend themselves with and landing on a toilet brush. Zix, realizing the gravity of the situation, took a deep breath. "We are peaceful explorers from the Galactic Union," she explained, her translator working overtime to convert her clicks and chirps into comprehensible English. "We came to study your showering rituals. I am Zix, and these are my colleagues, Gloop and Best." The human's grip on the toilet brush tightened. "Showering rituals. You broke into my house to use my shower." Best stepped forward, his optical sensors whirring as he analyzed the human's body language. "Technically, we didn't break anything. Our entry was quite smooth and—" "Not helping, Best," Zix hissed, nudging him with one of her free arms. The human's eyes narrowed, a mix of fear and curiosity battling across their features. "So, you're aliens, real aliens, and you came all this way to take a shower." Gloop, finding his courage, oozed forward slightly. "We are researchers, studying the hygiene practices of various species across the galaxy. Your showering fascinated us. We merely wish to understand it better." The human's posture relaxed slightly, though they still clutched the toilet brush like a weapon. "You could have asked, instead of, whatever this is." Zix's antennae drooped with embarrassment. We didn't want to alarm you. Our mission was supposed to be one of quiet observation. We never intended to make contact so abruptly." The human let out a long sigh, lowering the toilet brush. "Well, I guess if you were here to hurt me, you would have done it by now. Instead, you're just using my shampoo." They shook their head, a bemused smile tugging at their lips. "I'm Tom, by the way. Tom Chen. And I guess I'm the first human to make contact with alien life. Lucky me." Zix's multifaceted eyes brightened. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Tom Chen. We apologize for the intrusion. Perhaps we could start over." Tom nodded slowly, still trying to process the surreal situation. "Sure, why not? But maybe we should move this conversation to the living room. And you might want to rinse off first." As Zix hurriedly washed off the soap, with some awkward assistance from Tom in operating the shower controls, Gloop and Best introduced themselves properly. Tom, for his part, seemed to be taking the whole situation remarkably well, his initial fear giving way to fascination. Once they had all moved to the living room, with towels hastily draped over the furniture to accommodate Zix's damp scales, and Gloop's perpetually moist form, the real cultural exchange began. "So," Tom said, leaning forward in his chair, "you're telling me that there's a whole galactic union out there, and they sent you here to study our cleaning habits?" Zix nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, the Galactic Union is always seeking to understand new cultures and species. Hygiene practices can tell us so much about a civilization's values, technological advancement, and even social structures." Tom furrowed his brow. "And showering is not common in space." Best's metallic digits tapped together as he formulated a response. "Many species have their own methods of maintaining cleanliness. Some use sonic vibrations, others employ specialized gases or even microscopic cleaning organisms. The use of water in such a direct and immersive manner is quite unique." "Ha," Tom mused, a grin spreading across his face. "Wait until I tell my mom that aliens think her nagging about showering every day is special." Gloop's form rippled with curiosity. "You perform this ritual daily? Fascinating. Is it a religious observance?" Tom laughed, a sound that startled the aliens with its suddenness. No, it's just, to get clean, to wash off sweat and dirt, and it feels good, especially after a long day." Zix's antennae perked up. "Yes, we experienced that sensation. It was most invigorating. But tell us," Tom Chen, what is the purpose of the many scented substances you apply during this process? As Tom launched into an explanation of soaps, shampoos, and the human obsession with smelling nice, the aliens listened with rapt attention. Their questions came rapid fire, each answer seeming to spawn a dozen more inquiries. But why do you need so many different tools for cleaning? We observed multiple brushes, scrubbing implements, and even small strings for cleaning between your food processing units. Tom blinked, taking a moment to decipher the alien terminology. Oh, you mean toothbrushes and floss? Yeah, I guess we do have a lot of stuff. It's just part of our routine, you know. The conversation flowed freely, with each side growing more comfortable as they shared details about their respective cultures. The aliens were particularly intrigued by the concept of bubble baths and rubber ducks, while Tom found himself fascinated by the diverse cleaning methods employed across the galaxy. As the evening wore on, however, a new tension began to build. Zix, Gloop, and Best exchanged worried glances, knowing that they had long overstayed their intended observation period. The Zephyr would be expecting a report, and their unauthorized contact with a human could have serious repercussions. Tom Chen, Zix began, her voice tinged with regret. We have greatly enjoyed this exchange, but we must return to our ship. Our superiors will be wondering about our extended absence. Tom's face fell. Oh, right. I guess you can't just hang out on Earth forever. He paused, a thought occurring to him. Wait, what happens now? Are you going to, I don't know, erase my memory or something? Best's optical sensors widened in alarm. Erase your memory? What a barbaric notion. We would never. Is that something your species does? Tom chuckled nervously. No. It's just, in our movies, when humans meet aliens, it often ends with some kind of cover-up. Gloop oozed forward, his form undulating with concern. We have no intention of altering your memories, Tom Chen. However, we must ask that you keep our existence confidential, at least for now. The Galactic Union has strict protocols about first contact situations. Tom nodded solemnly. I understand. But will I ever see you again? There's so much more I want to ask, to learn. Zix felt a warmth in her thorax, touched by the human's eagerness. We cannot make promises, Tom Chen, but know that this encounter has been as enlightening for us as it has been for you. Perhaps in time, our peoples will meet again under more official circumstances. As they prepared to leave, Tom insisted on giving them a parting gift. He disappeared into the bathroom, returning with an assortment of soaps, shampoos, and even a rubber duck. A little piece of Earth for you to remember us by, he said with a smile. The aliens accepted the gifts with a mix of gratitude and confusion, particularly puzzled by the purpose of the squeaky yellow waterfowl. As they made their way back to their stealth pod, carefully avoiding the gaze of any neighbors who might be out and about, they felt a curious mix of excitement and apprehension. Once safely back aboard the Zephyr, Zix, Gloop, and Billist found themselves facing a stern-looking Captain Blip, his gelatinous form quivering with barely contained anger. Explain yourselves, he burbled, eye stalks swiveling between the three chastened crew members. Your observation mission lasted far longer than authorized, and our sensors detected unauthorized use of your stealth suits. What happened down there? Zix stepped forward, her antennae drooping with shame. Captain, we made contact with a human. The bridge fell silent, the only sound the soft hum of the ship's systems. Captain Blip's eye stalks went rigid with shock. You Kate. As Zix recounted their adventure, with occasional interjections from Gloop and Bust, the captain's gelatinous form cycled through a rainbow of colors, reflecting his tumultuous emotions. When they finished their tale, Blip's form had settled into a deep, worried purple. Do you have any idea what you've done? He gurgled. First contact situations are delicate, carefully orchestrated affairs. They involve years of preparation, cultural sensitivity training, diplomatic protocols, and you three bumbled into it because you wanted to try a shower. Best's metallic digits clicked together nervously. To be fair, Captain, we gathered an unprecedented amount of data on human hygiene practices. And the human we encountered, Tom Chen, seemed quite open to interstellar dialogue. Blip's eye stalks swiveled towards the mechaniform. That's not the point. One human's positive reaction doesn't negate the potential catastrophe you've set in motion. What if this Tom Chen tells others? What if word of our presence spreads? We could be looking at a planet-wide panic. Gloop oozed forward, his gelatinous form rippling with concern. Captain, if I may, Tom Chen promised to keep our existence confidential. He seemed to understand the gravity of the situation. A promise from a being whose culture and values we barely understand, Blip countered. For all we know, humans could view such promises as non-binding or have cultural norms that encourage sharing such monumental news. Zix, who had been quietly contemplating their predicament, suddenly perked up. Captain, I have an idea. What if we turn this mistake into an opportunity? All eyes and optical sensors turned to her. Blip's eye stalks curved skeptically. I'm listening, but I doubt there's any way to salvage this mess. Well, Zix began, her words coming faster as her excitement grew. We've already made first contact, albeit unofficially. Why not use this as a test case? We could continue to interact with Tom Chen, learn more about human culture in a controlled setting. It would give us invaluable insights before any official first contact is made. Blip's gelatinous form rippled thoughtfully. It's not the worst idea I've heard, but it's incredibly risky. If the Galactic Union found out, they don't have to, Best interjected, his processes whirring as he calculated probabilities. We could classify it as an extended cultural immersion study. Technically, we wouldn't be lying. Gloop's form quivered with a mix of anxiety and excitement. It could work. And think of the data we could gather. Not just about hygiene, but about human social structures, technology, art. The possibilities are endless. Captain Blip was silent for a long moment, his eye stalks swiveling between the three eager crew members and the view screen showing the blue-green orb of Earth. Finally, he let out a long, bubbling sigh. Against my better judgment, I'm going to approve this, whatever it is. Extended study, unofficial first contact, intergalactic cultural exchange program. Call it what you will. His eye stalks fixed sternly on each of them in turn. But if anything goes wrong, if our presence becomes known beyond this Tom Chen, I'll have you all resigned to waste management on the most inhospitable rock in the galaxy. Understood. Zix, Gloop, and Best nodded vigorously, barely containing their excitement. As they left the bridge to prepare for their next expedition to Earth, Zix felt a thrill of anticipation. They had come to study human hygiene, but they had stumbled upon something far greater, a chance to bridge the gap between two vastly different civilizations. As the Zephyr maintained its orbit around Earth, its crew blissfully unaware of the potential consequences of their actions, Tom Chen sat in his living room, staring at the spot where his alien visitors had been. In his hand, he clutched his phone, thumb hovering over the contact list. He had promised to keep the aliens' existence a secret, and he intended to honor that promise. But the weight of what he had experienced, the monumental nature of the knowledge he now possessed, felt too great to bear alone. Finally, decision made, he pressed a name in his contacts. The phone rang twice before a familiar voice answered. "Hey Lisa, it's Tom. You're not going to believe what just happened." As Tom began to share his incredible tale with his best friend, the delicate balance between human ignorance and galactic knowledge began to shift. Unbeknownst to the well-meaning aliens aboard the Zephyr, their simple mission to study human hygiene had set in motion a chain of events that would forever alter the course of both human and alien history. The stage was set for a grand adventure, one that would test the limits of interspecies understanding, challenge long-held beliefs on both sides, and perhaps, just perhaps, lead to a new era of cosmic cooperation, all because of a curious alien's desire to experience a human shower. Unexpected alliance. 2 weeks had passed since the fateful first encounter in Tom Chen's bathroom. In that time, Zix, Gloop, and Best had made several clandestine visits to Earth, each time expanding their knowledge of human culture far beyond the realm of hygiene practices. Tom, for his part, had proven to be an enthusiastic and invaluable guide to life on Earth. Despite his initial slip in telling his best friend Lisa about the aliens, Tom had managed to keep their existence relatively secret. Lisa, a graduate student in anthropology, had joined their little group, her academic background proving invaluable in explaining human social structures and cultural norms to the curious extraterrestrials. On this particular evening, the unlikely group of 2 humans and 3 aliens sat in Tom's living room, engaged in what had become a regular cultural exchange session. "So, let me get this straight," Tom said, leaning forward with a look of disbelief on his face. "In the Galactic Union, you don't have anything like money." Zix's antennae twitched in amusement. "Not in the way you humans use it, no. Resources are allocated based on need and contribution to society. The concept of accumulating wealth for its own sake is quite foreign to us." Lisa's eyes lit up with academic excitement. "Fascinating. It's like a post-scarcity society. Karl Marx would have a field day with this." Gluck's gelatinous form rippled with curiosity. "This Marx individual, was he one of your world leaders?" Tom chuckled. "Not exactly. He was a philosopher who had some pretty radical ideas about how society should be organized. Some people tried to put his ideas into practice, but it didn't go so well." Best's optical sensors whirred as he processed this information. "Intriguing. It seems that despite your species' technological advancements, you still struggle with equitable resource distribution." Lisa nodded, a wry smile on her face. "That's putting it mildly. But enough about our socio-economic issues. I want to hear more about this Galactic Union. How many species are involved? How do you govern such a vast organization?" As Zix launched into an explanation of the Union's complex political structure, a sudden flash of light from outside caught everyone's attention. Tom moved to the window, peering out into the night sky. "Guys, you might want to see this," he said, his voice tinged with worry. The others crowded around the window, gazing up at the sky. A series of bright lights were moving in formation, far too fast and coordinated to be any known aircraft. Zix felt her scales tighten with apprehension. "Those aren't Union ships," she chittered nervously. Gloop's form quivered anxiously. "Could it be the Vraxian Empire?" Best's metallic body emitted a low hum of distress. "Impossible. They wouldn't dare violate Union space so blatantly." Tom and Lisa exchanged confused glances. "Ah, guys," Tom interjected, "care to fill us in? Who or what are the Vraxians?" Before any of the aliens could respond, a deafening boom shook the house. The lights flickered and went out, plunging them into darkness. In the distance, sirens began to wail. "We need to get to our ship," Zix said urgently, her bioluminescent scales providing a soft glow in the darkened room. "If those are Vraxian ships, your planet is in grave danger." Lisa grabbed her phone, quickly scrolling through news alerts. "It's not just here," she said, her voice shaking. "Reports are coming in from all over the world. Unidentified aircraft, power outages, panic in the streets." Tom's face hardened with resolve. "We're coming with you," he said firmly. Gloop's form rippled with alarm. "Absolutely not. We've already violated countless protocols. Taking humans off-planet would be the least of our concerns if this is indeed a Vraxian invasion." Best interrupted, his usually calm synthetic voice carrying an edge of urgency. Zix nodded in agreement. "Best is right. We need to inform Captain Blip and the Union immediately." "Tom, Lisa, I know this isn't what you expected when you met us, but we could use your help. Your knowledge of Earth could be crucial in coordinating a defense." Tom and Lisa shared a look, a silent communication passing between them. After a moment, they both nodded. "Let's go save the world," Tom said with a nervous grin. The group hurried out of the house, using the chaos of the blackout as cover as they made their way to the hidden stealth pod. As they approached, a figure emerged from the shadows, causing them all to freeze. "And where do you think you're going?" a familiar voice asked. Tom let out a relieved sigh. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Dr. Helen Chen, a renowned astrophysicist, stepped into the glow of Zix's bioluminescence. Her eyes widened as she took in the alien forms before her, but to everyone's surprise, she didn't seem shocked. "I knew it," she said, a hint of triumph in her voice. "I detected anomalous readings weeks ago, gravitational fluctuations, unexplained energy signatures. You've been hosting extraterrestrial visitors, haven't you, Tom?" Tom gaped at his mother. You knew." Helen smiled wryly. "Suspected. Though I must admit, I didn't expect them to look quite so diverse." She turned to address the aliens directly. "I assume these lights in the sky are why you're in such a hurry." Zix, momentarily stunned by this new development, quickly regained her composure. "Dr. Chen, I presume. Your reputation is known even among our scientists. You're correct. We believe Earth may be under attack by a hostile alien force. We need to return to our ship to alert our superiors." Helen's expression turned grave. "Then there's no time to waste. I'm coming with you." Before anyone could protest, she strode past them and into the stealth pod. The others quickly followed, the door sealing behind them with a soft hiss. As Best piloted the pod towards the Zephyr, skillfully avoiding detection by the Vraxian ships now swarming Earth's orbit, the humans peppered the aliens with questions. "Who are these Vraxians?" Lissa asked, her anthropologist's mind racing with the implications of yet another alien species. Gloop's form darkened with concern as he explained. "The Vraxian Empire is a militaristic society bent on expanding their territory through conquest. They've been at odds with the Galactic Union for centuries, but open conflict has been rare, until now." "But why Earth?" Tom wondered aloud. "We don't have anything they'd want, do we?" Zix's antennae drooped. "I'm afraid you do, Tom. Your planet is rich in resources, strategically located, and until recently, unknown to the Galactic Union. We may have inadvertently led them here." A heavy silence fell over the pod as the implications of Zix's words sank in. Their simple mission of cultural observation had potentially doomed an entire planet. As they approached the Zephyr, a tense voice crackled over the pod's communications system. "Unidentified craft, state your business immediately or be destroyed." Best quickly responded, transmitting their identification codes. After a moment of agonizing silence, the voice returned, noticeably relieved. "Thank the cosmic winds, it's you. Get aboard quickly, we have a situation." The pod docked with the Zephyr, and as the group disembarked, they were met by a visibly agitated Captain Blip. His gelatinous form was cycling through a kaleidoscope of worried colors. "What in the name of the galactic core were you thinking, bringing humans aboard?" he burbled angrily. Then, noticing Helen, his eye stalks swiveled in confusion. "And who is this?" "Captain," Zix said, stepping forward. "This is Dr. Helen Chen, a renowned Earth scientist. Her expertise could be invaluable in the current crisis. Speaking of which..." Blip's form deflated slightly. "Yes, the crisis. The Vraxians have launched a full-scale invasion of Earth. We've sent distress signals to Union headquarters, but it will take time for reinforcements to arrive. In the meantime, we're under strict orders not to interfere." "Not interfere," Tom exclaimed, his face flushing with anger. "You're just going to sit here and watch while our planet is invaded." Helen placed a calming hand on her son's shoulder. "Tom, I'm sure there are protocols." "To hell with protocols," Lissa interjected, surprising everyone with her vehemence. "We're talking about the fate of our entire species here." Captain Blip's eye stalks drooped with what appeared to be shame. "I understand your frustration, but we're a research vessel. We're not equipped for combat against the Vraxian fleet." An uncomfortable silence fell over the bridge, broken only by the soft beeping of the ship's instruments. Then, Best spoke up, his synthetic voice carrying an unusual note of determination. "Captain, if I may, while we may not be able to engage the Vraxians directly, perhaps there's another way we can help." All eyes turned to the mechaniform. Blitz's eye stalks curved curiously. "Go on." "The humans have a saying, knowledge is power. We've spent weeks studying Earth's culture and technology. Perhaps we can use that knowledge to help the humans defend themselves." Gloop's form rippled with excitement. "Yes, and with Dr. Chen's scientific expertise, we might be able to adapt some of our technology for Earth's use." Zix's antennae perked up as she caught on to the idea. It wouldn't be direct interference. We'd simply be accelerating Earth's technological development, giving them a fighting chance. Captain Blip's gelatinous form undulated as he considered the proposal. After what felt like an eternity, he spoke. "It's a risk, a massive one. If the Union found out..." Helen interrupted, stepping forward. "They would see a species willing to fight against oppression, a species worthy of joining their ranks." Blip's eye stalks swiveled to regard the human scientist. "You make a compelling argument, Dr. Chen. Very well. We'll do what we can to assist Earth's defense, but we must be cautious. The fate of two worlds now hangs in the balance." With that decision made, the unlikely alliance sprang into action. The bridge of the Zephyr became a hive of activity as humans and aliens worked together, pooling their knowledge and resources. Helen and Best huddled over the ship's advanced sensor arrays, analyzing the Vraxian fleet's weaknesses. Tom and Gloop pored over Earth's communication systems, devising ways to coordinate a global resistance. Lisa and Zix worked on translating Galactic Union technology into terms Earth scientists could understand and potentially replicate. As they worked, the gravity of the situation became increasingly clear. The Vraxian invasion was proceeding rapidly, with major cities around the globe falling under alien control. Earth's military forces, while fighting valiantly, were hopelessly outmatched by the invaders' advanced technology. "We need a way to disrupt their communications," Helen mused, her eyes never leaving the holographic display of the Vraxian fleet. "If we could throw their coordination into chaos, it might give Earth's forces a chance to regroup." Best's optical sensors whirred as he processed the idea. Possible. Vraxian ships rely on quantum entanglement for faster-than-light communication. If we could introduce a cascading error into their entanglement matrix, we could effectively blind their entire fleet. Helen finished, her eyes lighting up with excitement. Meanwhile, Tom and Gloop had made a breakthrough of their own. "Look at this," Tom said, pointing to a map of Earth dotted with glowing points. "These are the locations of the world's most powerful radio telescopes. If we could link them together and boost their power..." Gloop's form rippled with understanding. "We could create a planet-wide communication network undetectable to the Vraxians." "Brilliant, Tom Chen." Lisa and Zix, for their part, had begun drafting plans for simple but effective countermeasures against Vraxian weaponry, based on principles that could be quickly understood and implemented by Earth's scientists. As the hours ticked by, their plan began to take shape. It was audacious, relying on split-second timing and the coordination of millions of humans across the globe. But if it worked, it could turn the tide of the invasion. Captain Blip, who had been overseeing their efforts, finally spoke up. "It's time. We need to transmit this information to Earth's leaders. But how can we ensure they'll trust us?" Helen stepped forward, a determined look on her face. "They'll trust me. I may not be a world leader, but I'm a respected scientist with connections in governments around the world. If I vouch for this plan, they'll listen." Tom looked at his mother with a mix of pride and concern. "Mom, if you do this, your life will never be the same. The whole world will know about the aliens, about your involvement." Helen smiled softly at her son. "Sometimes, Tom, we have to sacrifice our normal lives for the greater good. I think you and your friends have already learned that lesson." With a nod from Captain Blip, Helen began recording a message to be broadcast to key figures around the world. As her voice rang out, explaining the situation and the plan they had devised, the others watched in awe. This was the moment when everything would change, not just for Earth, but for the entire galaxy. As the message was transmitted, using the Zephyr's advanced technology to bypass the Vraxian communication blocks, an alert sounded on the ship's main console. "Captain," one of the crew members called out, "we're detecting a massive energy buildup in the Vraxian fleet. They're preparing to launch a coordinated strike against Earth's major population centers." The atmosphere on the bridge tensed. Their plan was in motion, but would it be in time? As they watched the holographic display, showing the Vraxian ships moving into attack formation, Zix felt a hand slip into hers. She looked up to see Tom, his face set in grim determination. "Whatever happens," he said softly, "I'm glad we met. You've shown us that the universe is bigger and more wonderful than we ever imagined." Zix squeezed his hand with two of hers, her antennae brushing against his cheek in a gesture of affection. "And you've shown us the true meaning of courage and friendship, Tom Chen." As the Vraxian weapons powered up, casting an ominous glow across the Earth's atmosphere, the unlikely team of humans and aliens stood united, watching and waiting. The fate of Earth, and perhaps the entire Galactic Union, hung in the balance. The next few moments would determine whether their desperate plan would save a world, or if they would bear witness to its destruction. Battle of Wits. The bridge of the Zephyr thrummed with tension as the crew watched the Vraxian fleet prepare their devastating attack on Earth. The holographic display showed thousands of enemy ships, their weapons glowing with ominous energy. Time seemed to slow to a crawl as they waited to see if their hastily conceived plan would work. Suddenly, a series of rapid beats erupted from Best's console. The mechanoform's optical sensors whirred frantically as he processed the incoming data. "It's working," he exclaimed, his usually monotone voice tinged with excitement. "The quantum entanglement disruptor is causing a cascading failure in the Vraxian communication network." On the main display, they watched as confusion spread through the invading fleet. Ships that had been moving in perfect formation began to drift apart, their coordinated attack falling into disarray. Helen leaned in, her eyes sharp as she analyzed the data. "The radio telescope network is online too. We're receiving reports from resistance groups all over the world. They're standing by, ready to implement our countermeasures." Captain Blip's gelatinous form rippled with a mix of relief and apprehension. "It's a good start, but the Vraxians won't be confused forever. We need to press our advantage while we have it." Tom, who had been quiet for the past few minutes, suddenly spoke up. "What if we could turn their own weapons against them?" All eyes on the bridge turned to the young human. Zix's antennae twitched curiously. "What do you mean, Tom?" "Well," Tom began, his words coming faster as his excitement grew, "you said the Vraxians use quantum entanglement for communication, right? What if we could use that same principle to create a feedback loop in their weapon systems?" Best's processors whirred as he considered the idea. "Theoretically possible, but extremely difficult. We would need to precisely match the quantum frequency of their systems, and then introduce a paradoxical input that would cause the weapons to target their own ships." Lisa snapped her fingers, her eyes lighting up. "The double-slit experiment. We could use the observer effect to our advantage." Gloop's form rippled with confusion. "I'm afraid I don't follow. What is this double-slit experiment?" Helen quickly explained the basics of the famous quantum physics experiment, where the act of observation affects the behavior of particles. As she spoke, Zix could almost see the gears turning in everyone's minds. "So," Zix said slowly, piecing it together, "if we could somehow make the Vraxian weapons observe themselves, they would change their own quantum state." Best finished, his optical sensors glowing brightly with realization. "Brilliant. But how do we implement such a plan on a large scale?" Tom grinned, a mischievous glint in his eye. "We hack their systems and make them run the double-slit experiment on themselves. It's like a quantum virus." Captain Blip's eye stalks swiveled between the excited faces of his crew and their human allies. This sounds incredibly risky. How can we be sure it won't backfire and harm Earth as well? We can't, Helen admitted, but at this point, we're out of other options. The Vraxians are regrouping. If we don't act now, Earth is doomed anyway. The captain's gelatinous form undulated as he considered their proposal. After a tense moment, he nodded. Very well, proceed with the plan. But be careful, we're walking a very fine line between saving Earth and potentially destabilizing the fabric of space-time itself. With the captain's approval, the team sprang into action. Best and Helen worked furiously to code the quantum virus, while Tom and Lisa coordinated with Earth's resistance groups to prepare for the aftermath. Zix and Gloop monitored the Vraxian fleet, ready to alert the others at the first sign of trouble. As they worked, the situation on Earth grew increasingly dire. Despite the communication disruption, the Vraxians had managed to launch several devastating attacks. Major cities around the globe lay in ruins, and millions of humans had been forced to flee their homes. We're running out of time, Gloop bubbled anxiously, his gelatinous form quivering as he watched the destruction unfold on the view screen. Almost there, Best replied, his metallic fingers flying over the console. Dr. Chen, are you ready with a targeting algorithm? Helen nodded, her face set with determination. Ready. Tom, Lisa, signal the resistance. Tell them to stand by with the countermeasures. Things are about to get chaotic. Tom and Lisa relayed the message, their voices steady despite the weight of responsibility on their shoulders. Zix marveled at their composure. These humans, thrust into an intergalactic conflict beyond anything their species had ever faced, were rising to the challenge with remarkable courage and ingenuity. Quantum virus loaded, Best announced, preparing to transmit. Captain Blip's eye stalks swiveled nervously. May the cosmic winds be in our favor. Execute the plan. With a final keystroke, Best launched the quantum virus into the Vraxian fleet's systems. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, all at once, chaos erupted. On the view screen, they watched as Vraxian ships began to fire wildly, their weapons turning against their own fleet. Explosions blossomed in the dark expanse of space as ship after ship succumbed to friendly fire. It's working, Tom exclaimed, pumping his fist in the air. But their celebration was short-lived. As quickly as it had begun, the effect of the quantum virus began to fade. The Vraxian ships, their advanced AI adapting to the attack, started to regain control of their systems. They're neutralizing the virus faster than we anticipated, Best reported, his synthetic voice tinged with worry. Helen leaned in, her eyes scanning the data streaming across the screen. We need to buy more time. If we could just keep them confused a little longer, Earth's forces might have a chance to mount a counterattack. Zix's antennae twitched as an idea formed. What if we could make them see things that aren't there? Create phantom ships, false targets. Gloop's form rippled with excitement, a holographic illusion, but on a massive scale. We'd need to redirect an enormous amount of energy, Lisa mused, her mind racing. What if we use the planet's electromagnetic field as an amplifier? Tom's eyes widened. The aurora borealis. If we could harness that energy and project it into space. Captain Blip's gelatinous form rippled with concern. The risk to Earth's magnetic field could be catastrophic. We could be trading one disaster for another. Helen shook her head. Not necessarily. If we time it right, we could use the energy of the Vraxian weapons themselves to power the hologram. It would be like a cosmic mirror. As the team debated the merits and risks of the plan, a loud alarm blared through the ship. Zix rushed to the console, her scales paling as she read the incoming data. We have a problem, she chittered urgently. The Vraxian flagship has broken through Earth's defenses. They're preparing to land in Washington, D.C. A heavy silence fell over the bridge. They all understood the implications. If the Vraxians established a ground presence in one of Earth's major capitals, the planet's resistance would crumble. Tom stepped forward, his jaw set with determination. We need to split up. Some of us have to go down there and stop that landing. Captain Blip's eye stalks quivered with alarm. Absolutely not. I've already bent Union regulations to their breaking point. I cannot authorize a direct intervention on the planet's surface. Then don't authorize it, Lisa said, her voice steady. We'll go as private citizens, unofficial advisors to Earth's resistance. The captain's gelatinous form rippled with indecision. After a moment, he let out a long, bubbling sigh. I cannot condone this action, but if some of my crew were to take an unauthorized excursion in a stealth pod, I suppose I wouldn't notice their absence for, say, the next few hours. Zix felt a surge of affection for her captain. He was risking everything, his career, possibly even his freedom, to help a planet that, until a few weeks ago, he hadn't even known existed. Quickly, they divided into two teams. Best, Helen and Gloop, would remain on the Zephyr, working to implement the holographic defense system. Zix, Tom, and Lisa would take a stealth pod to Earth, hoping to disrupt the Vraxian landing. As they prepared to depart, Captain Blip approached Zix. Be careful down there, he burbled softly. And remember, the fate of two worlds rests on your actions. No pressure. Zix's mandibles clicked in what passed for a smile among her species. We won't let you down, Captain. The journey to Earth was tense, the stealth pod weaving through the chaos of the space battle above the planet. As they entered the atmosphere, the true scale of the destruction became apparent. Vast swathes of the eastern seaboard were in flames, the once proud skyline of Washington, D.C., now a jagged silhouette of ruined buildings. There, Tom pointed, his voice tight with anger and grief. The National Mall. That's where they're landing. Zix guided the pod towards the indicated location, her skilled piloting keeping them hidden from both Vraxian sensors and panicked human defenses. As they neared the ground, they could see the massive Vraxian flagship descending, its imposing bulk casting a shadow over the devastated city. How are we supposed to stop that thing? Lisa wondered aloud, her academic calm finally cracking in the face of the overwhelming odds. Zix's antennae twitched as she scanned the area. Look, there's a group of human resistance fighters gathering near the Lincoln Memorial. If we can link up with them, maybe we can come up with a plan. Tom nodded grimly. It's our best shot. Take us in, Zix. As they landed and emerged from the pod, they were immediately confronted by a group of heavily armed humans, their faces smeared with dirt and determination. Hold it right there, one of them shouted, raising his weapon. Who the hell are you, and what is that thing? Tom stepped forward, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. I'm Tom Chen. This is Lisa and Zix. We're here to help. That thing is a friend, an ally against the Vraxians. The soldiers exchanged skeptical glances, but before they could respond, a familiar voice called out from behind them. Stand down. They're friendlies. The group parted to reveal a disheveled but very much alive Dr. Helen Chen. Mom, Tom exclaimed, rushing forward to embrace her. But how? I thought you were on the Zephyr. Helen smiled wryly. I may have neglected to mention that I had a way to transmit my consciousness into an android body. A little project I've been working on with Best. Comes in handy in situations like this. Zix's antennae twitched with amused exasperation. It seemed humans had a knack for surprising even the most experienced galactic explorers. As the group huddled together, sharing information and formulating a plan, the Vraxian flagship continued its ominous descent. They had minutes at most before the invasion force would be on the ground. We need a way to disrupt their landing, Lisa mused, her analytical mind racing. If we could destabilize their gravity systems. One of the soldiers, a young woman with a lieutenant's insignia, spoke up. We've got a prototype EMP device, but we haven't been able to get close enough to use it effectively. Zix's eyes lit up. An electromagnetic pulse. That could work, especially if we could boost its power and focus it precisely on their propulsion systems. Tom snapped his fingers. The Washington Monument. It's basically a giant lightning rod. If we could channel the EMP through it, we could create a focused beam of electromagnetic energy. Helen finished, her eyes shining with excitement. It's crazy, but it just might work. As the group quickly hashed out the details of their plan, Zix couldn't help but marvel at the humans' resilience and creativity. In the face of overwhelming odds, they refused to give up, constantly finding new ways to fight back. With the plan set, they split into teams. Tom and Lisa would accompany the soldiers to set up the EMP device at the base of the Washington Monument. Helen would coordinate with the remaining resistance forces to create a diversion, drawing Vraxian attention away from the real threat. And Zix, with her advanced knowledge of alien technology, would attempt to infiltrate the flagship and sabotage its systems from within. As they prepared to move out, Tom pulled Zix aside. "Be careful up there," he said softly, his eyes filled with concern. We need you to come back safely." Zix felt a warm flutter in her thorax, a sensation she was beginning to associate with these strange, wonderful humans. "I will," she chittered softly. "You be careful too, Tom Chen. Earth needs you." With a final nod, they parted ways, each heading towards their assigned tasks. As Zix made her way towards the descending flagship, using her stealth technology to avoid detection, she felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. This wasn't how she had imagined her mission to study human hygiene practices would end, but she wouldn't have it any other way. The fate of Earth, and perhaps the entire galaxy, now rested on the success of their desperate plan. As the Vraxian flagship loomed ever closer, Zix steeled herself for the challenge ahead. It was time to show the invaders that they had made a grave mistake in underestimating both humanity and the determination of one very curious alien cleaning crew. The Great Escape. As Zix approached the massive Vraxian flagship, her heart raced with a mixture of fear and determination. The ship's hull loomed before her, a dark, forbidding expanse of alien metal. Using her advanced stealth technology, she managed to slip through a small maintenance hatch, entering the belly of the beast. Meanwhile, Tom and Lisa worked feverishly with the human resistance fighters to set up the EMP device at the base of the Washington Monument. The once pristine National Mall was now a battlefield, with the smoldering remains of vehicles and defensive barriers scattered across the scorched grass. "How much longer?" Tom asked anxiously, his eyes darting between the EMP device and the ever-descending Vraxian ship. Lisa wiped sweat from her brow, her fingers flying over the device's control panel. "Almost there. We need to calibrate it precisely, or we'll risk frying every piece of electronics in the city, including our own." As they worked, the sound of energy weapons and explosions grew closer. The diversionary team, led by the android version of Dr. Helen Chen, was doing its job, perhaps too well. "We've got company," shouted one of the soldiers, raising his rifle as a group of Vraxian foot soldiers appeared in the distance. Tom grabbed a discarded weapon, his hands shaking slightly as he took up a defensive position. "Keep working, Lisa. We'll hold them off." Inside the Vraxian flagship, Zix crept through dimly lit corridors, her antennae twitching at every sound. The ship's interior was a maze of pulsing biomechanical structures, so alien that even her extensive galactic knowledge was put to the test. As she rounded a corner, she came face to face with a Vraxian engineer. The alien, a hulking figure with multiple tentacle-like appendages and a carapace that seemed to shift colors, let out a surprised gurgle. Acting on instinct, Zix launched herself at the Vraxian, using her smaller size and agility to her advantage. They grappled briefly before she managed to apply pressure to a nerve cluster, rendering the engineer unconscious. Panting, Zix dragged the unconscious Vraxian into a nearby alcove. "Sorry about that," she chittered softly. "It's nothing personal, just trying to save a planet." With the immediate threat neutralized, Zix continued her search for the ship's main control center. As she navigated the twisting corridors, she couldn't help but marvel at the Vraxian technology. Despite their aggressive nature, their scientific achievements were impressive. Back on the ground, the battle was intensifying. Tom, having never fired a weapon before, found himself in the thick of combat. His academic knowledge of physics was proving surprisingly useful as he calculated trajectories and used the environment to his advantage. "Lisa," he called out, ducking behind a fallen statue. "How much longer?" "Just a few more minutes," she shouted back, her voice barely audible over the chaos. "I need to synchronize the pulse with the ship's descent." As Tom provided covering fire, he caught glimpses of the diversionary team's efforts. The android Helen was a whirlwind of action, her enhanced body allowing her to perform feats no human could match. She leaped between Vraxian soldiers, using their own weapons against them and sowing confusion in their ranks. In orbit above Earth, the battle raged on. The Zephyr, under Captain Blitz's command, coordinated with Earth's remaining military forces to implement the holographic defense system. The space around the planet shimmered with false images of warships and phantom weapons fire, confusing and scattering the Vraxian fleet. Best's metallic voice crackled over the communication channel. "Captain, the holographic field is stable, but we're detecting a surge of energy from the Vraxian command ships. They're attempting to break through." Blitz's gelatinous form rippled with tension. "Divert all available power to maintain the illusion. We need to buy more time for the ground team." Inside the Vraxian flagship, Zix finally located what appeared to be the main control center. The vast chamber was filled with bio-organic consoles, each attended by a Vraxian operator. At the center stood an imposing figure, clearly the ship's commander. Zix's mind raced as she assessed the situation. She needed to sabotage the ship's systems, but with so many Vraxians present, a direct approach was impossible. Then her eyes fell on a pulsing structure near the back of the room, the ship's primary power distribution node. An idea formed in her mind, crazy and desperate, but potentially effective. Reaching into her pack, she pulled out the rubber duck Tom had given her as a parting gift. "I hope Earth's bathtub technology is as versatile as Tom claimed," she muttered. With practiced skill, Zix began to disassemble the rubber duck, using its components and her own advanced tech to craft a makeshift disruptor device. If her calculations were correct, it would create a cascading failure in the ship's power systems, but only if she could get it close enough to the distribution node. As she worked, a commotion near the entrance caught her attention. To her horror, she saw a group of Vraxian soldiers dragging in a captured human, Tom. Her heart's racing, Zix watched as Tom was brought before the Vraxian commander. Despite his obvious fear, Tom stood tall, defiance blazing in his eyes. "So," the commander gurgled in heavily accented English, "you are one of the troublesome humans causing us so much difficulty. Perhaps you can explain why your primitive species insists on resisting the inevitable." Tom's voice was steady as he replied, "Because we will never surrender to tyrants, no matter how technologically advanced they might be. Humanity has faced extinction before, and we've always found a way to survive." The commander's color-shifting carapace rippled with what might have been amusement. "Brave words, little human, but your resistance is futile. Even now, our force is air." The ship suddenly rocked violently, cutting off the commander's words. Alarms blared as the view screen showed a massive electromagnetic pulse radiating from the Washington Monument, engulfing the lower half of the flagship. Tom's face broke into a grin. "You were saying?" As chaos erupted in the control room, Zix saw her chance. Using the confusion as cover, she darted from her hiding spot, rubber duck disruptor in hand. With a powerful leap, she bounded across the room, sailing over the heads of startled Vraxians. "Zix!" Tom cried out, equal parts surprised and relieved. Landing next to the power distribution node, Zix slapped her makeshift device onto its pulsing surface. "Duck and cover, Tom," she shouted, activating the disruptor. A high-pitched whine filled the air, quickly rising beyond the range of human hearing. The Vraxians, however, began to writhe in agony, their sensitive auditory organs overwhelmed by the sound. Tom, seizing the opportunity, broke free from his captors and ran towards Zix. "What did you do?" he asked, wide-eyed. "Turned your bathtub toy into a sonic weapon," Zix replied with a click of her mandibles. "Now, let's get out of here before—" Her words were cut off as the ship lurched violently. The power distribution nodes sparked and sputtered, tendrils of energy arsing across the control room. "Time to go," Tom shouted, grabbing Zix's hand and pulling her towards the exit. As they ran through the corridors of the failing ship, they could feel it listing to one side. The EMP had taken out its stabilizers, and now Zix's disruptor was causing a cascading systems failure. "We'll never make it to an escape pod in time," Zix chittered anxiously. Tom's face was set with determination. "Then we'll have to improvise. You trusted Earth technology once today. Want to try again?" Before Zix could ask what he meant, Tom pulled her into a large chamber filled with what looked like oversized metal cylinders. "Maintenance tubes," Tom exclaimed. "They use these for external repairs. If I'm right, they should be equipped with—" Yes, he pointed to a rack of what looked like primitive spacesuits. Quickly, they donned the suits, struggling with the oversized Vraxian design. As they sealed their helmets, the ship rocked again, more violently this time. "How do we open the tubes?" Zix asked, her voice tinny through the suit's communication system. Tom was already at a control panel, his fingers flying over the alien interface. "If I'm reading this right, it's this sequence here and—" With a whoosh of escaping air, the end of the nearest tube opened, revealing the chaotic battle raging over Washington, D.C. "Jump!" Tom yelled, grabbing Zix's hand once again. Together, they leaped into open air, the wind rushing past them as they plummeted towards the Earth below. Above them, the Vraxian flagship listed further to one side, smoke and energy discharges erupting from its hull. As they fell, Zix marveled at the bravery of her human friend. He had risked everything on a desperate gamble, trusting in her abilities and his own intuition. It was a level of courage she hadn't believed possible from such a young species. Their descent was suddenly arrested as the suit's built-in parachutes deployed, transforming their freefall into a more controlled glide. As they drifted towards the National Mall, Zix could see the battle still raging below. Lisa and the resistance fighters were holding their position at the Washington Monument, fending off waves of Vraxian soldiers. The android Helen was a blur of motion, her enhanced abilities allowing her to take on multiple opponents at once. As Tom and Zix touched down, they were immediately greeted by a hail of energy weapon fire. Ducking behind a fallen piece of debris, they struggled to remove the cumbersome Vraxian suits. "Tom's Zix," Lisa's voice called out. She ran towards them, her face streaked with dirt and sweat, but beaming with relief. "You're alive, but how did you?" Her question was cut short as a massive shadow fell over them. Looking up, they saw the Vraxian flagship, now completely out of control, plummeting towards the Earth. "Everybody run," Tom shouted, grabbing both Zix and Lisa and pulling them away from the impact zone. The ground shook with the force of an earthquake as the massive ship crashed into the National Mall. The shockwave knocked them off their feet, sending them tumbling across the scorched grass. For a moment, everything was chaos. Dust, debris, and the screams of both humans and Vraxians filled the air. Then, slowly, an eerie silence fell over the battlefield. As the dust began to settle, Tom, Zix, and Lisa picked themselves up, coughing and checking for injuries. Around them, human resistance fighters and Vraxian soldiers alike were emerging from whatever cover they had found, all staring in awe at the wreckage of the once mighty flagship. Did we just win?" Lisa asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Before anyone could answer, a crackling sound filled the air. Holographic projectors from the downed ship sputtered to life, projecting the image of the Vraxian commander. Though clearly injured, the alien's carapace still shimmered with defiance. "This changes nothing, humans," the commander gurgled. "Our fleet still controls your skies. This minor setback will only delay the inevitable. Surrender now, and we may yet show mercy." Tom stepped forward, his face set with determination. "You still don't get it, do you? We will never surrender. Humanity has faced worse odds before and survived. We're stubborn that way." The commander's color-shifting carapace rippled with what might have been grudging respect. Perhaps we have underestimated your species, but it matters not. Our reinforcements will arrive soon, and then..." The hologram suddenly flickered and died, replaced by a new image, this one showing the space battle above Earth. To everyone's amazement, the Vraxian fleet was in disarray, bombarded not just by Earth's remaining defenses, but by a vast armada of ships unlike anything they had ever seen. Captain Blip's voice boomed from the hologram. "Attention, Vraxian forces. This is Captain Blip of the Galactic Union. Your invasion of Earth is in direct violation of Union law. Stand down immediately, or face the consequences." A cheer went up from the human resistance fighters. The Vraxian soldiers, seeing their flagship destroyed and their fleet outmatched, began to lay down their weapons. As the reality of their victory began to sink in, Tom turned to Zix, his eyes shining with a mix of exhaustion and elation. "We did it. We actually did it." Zix's antennae twitched with emotion. "We did. Though I must admit, this was not quite how I imagined my mission to study human hygiene practices would end." Tom laughed, a sound of pure joy and relief. "Well, you certainly got an in-depth look at human tenacity and resourcefulness. Though I'm not sure how you'll explain using a rubber duck to save the planet in your report." As they shared a moment of levity, Lisa approached, supporting a limping but very much alive Dr. Helen Chen. The real one this time, not the android version. "Mom," Tom exclaimed, rushing to embrace her. "You're okay." Helen hugged her son tightly. "More than okay. I'm proud of you, Tom. Of all of you. You've not only saved Earth, but may have just ushered in a new era of intergalactic cooperation." As if to underscore her words, more holographic projections sprang to life around them. News reports from around the world showed scenes of celebration as the Vraxian forces retreated, and in the sky above, the first Galactic Union ships were beginning to descend, ready to make official first contact with humanity. Zix looked around at her human friends, Tom, Lisa, Helen, and all the brave resistance fighters who had risked everything to save their world. She felt a warmth in her thorax, a sense of belonging she had never experienced before. "So," she chittered softly, "what happens now?" Tom grinned, throwing an arm around her shoulders. Now we introduce the galaxy to humanity, for better or worse. And maybe, just maybe, we can turn this near disaster into the greatest adventure our species has ever known." As the sun began to rise over the battered but unbroken city of Washington, D.C., casting its light on humans and aliens standing together in unity, Zix realized that her mission had evolved into something far greater than she could have ever imagined. The study of human hygiene practices had led to the salvation of a world and the dawn of a new era for both Earth and the Galactic Union. And it had all started with a curious alien's desire to understand the strange human ritual of showering. As Zix looked towards the future, filled with endless possibilities and new friendships, she couldn't help but think that sometimes the greatest discoveries come from the most unexpected places, even a simple bathroom. A new era. In the weeks following the defeat of the Vraxian invasion, Earth underwent a transformation unlike anything in its history. The skies, once filled with hostile alien ships, now bustled with the comings and goings of Galactic Union vessels. Cleanup and reconstruction efforts were in full swing, with advanced alien technology accelerating the process far beyond what would have been possible with Earth's resources alone. At the heart of this whirlwind of activity were our unlikely heroes, Zix, Tom, Lisa, and Dr. Helen Chen. They found themselves thrust into the role of intermediaries between humanity and the Galactic Union, their unique experiences during the invasion making them invaluable in navigating the complex waters of interspecies diplomacy. On this particular morning, they gathered in a hastily repurposed conference room in the partially rebuilt Pentagon. The room buzzed with a mix of human and alien technologies, holographic displays flickering alongside traditional computer screens. "All right, let's recap our progress," Helen began, her voice carrying the weight of sleepless nights and ceaseless work. "The immediate crisis is over, but we're facing some significant challenges in integrating Earth into the galactic community." Tom nodded, pulling up a holographic list. Top of the agenda, the Technology Exchange Program. The Union is willing to share some of their advancements, but there's concern about how quickly we can responsibly adapt to such massive leaps in tech. Lisa, who had been poring over a stack of diplomatic reports, chimed in. "And let's not forget the cultural exchange issues. We're talking about introducing humanity to thousands of alien species, each with their own customs, taboos, and social norms. The potential for misunderstandings is, well, astronomical." Zig's antennae twitched with amusement at the pun, but her voice was serious as she added, "The Union Council is also expressing concerns about Earth's political fragmentation. They're used to dealing with planets that have unified global governments." A heavy silence fell over the room as they contemplated the enormity of the task before them. It was Tom who finally broke it, a hint of his old enthusiasm creeping into his voice. "You know, a few weeks ago, our biggest concern was figuring out how to explain to the world why aliens were so interested in our showers. Now we're talking about reshaping the entire course of human civilization. It's incredible." Helen smiled softly at her son. "It certainly puts things in perspective, doesn't it? But we can't lose sight of the human element in all this. People are scared, excited, confused. We need to ensure that in our rush to join the galactic community, we don't leave anyone behind." As if on cue, a notification chimed on the room's main display. Captain Blitz's gelatinous form shimmered into view, his eye stalks swiveling to take in the assembled group. "Greetings, Earth team," he burbled, his translator conveying a mix of respect and urgency. "I hope I'm not interrupting, but we have a situation developing that requires your immediate attention." Zix straightened, her scales rippling with concern. "What's wrong, Captain?" "We've just received word that a delegation from the Vraxian Empire is en route to Earth. They're claiming to be on a diplomatic mission, supposedly to negotiate reparations and a formal peace treaty." The room erupted in a flurry of exclamations and questions. Tom's voice cut through the chaos, sharp with suspicion. "Can we trust them? After everything they've done?" Blitz's form rippled uncertainly. "That's what we need to determine. The Union Council is divided on how to proceed. Some see this as an opportunity for a lasting peace, others suspect a trap. Given your unique experiences with both humans and Vraxians, they're requesting your input on how to handle this situation." Helen's brow furrowed in thought. "When will they arrive?" "Within the next solar day," Blit replied. "A Union escort fleet is already moving to intercept them in the outer solar system, but we need a decision on whether to allow them to approach Earth." Lisa, ever the anthropologist, spoke up. "This could be a crucial moment in shaping interspecies relations. If we can successfully negotiate with a former enemy, it could set a powerful precedent for Earth's role in the galactic community." Zix nodded, her antennae twitching thoughtfully. "But we can't ignore the potential risks. The Vraxians are known for their cunning. This could be a ploy to gather intelligence or exploit divisions within the Union." Tom paced the room, his mind racing. Suddenly, he stopped, a spark of inspiration in his eyes. "What if we turn this into an opportunity? Not just for peace, but for understanding?" All eyes in the room turned to him. "What do you mean?" Helen asked, intrigued. "Well, this whole adventure started because Zix and her team wanted to understand human culture, right? What if we propose a cultural exchange program with the Vraxians? We invite a small delegation to Earth, but not just to negotiate, to live among us, to learn about us, and in turn, teach us about them. The room fell silent as they considered the audacity of the proposal. It was Zix who broke the silence, her mandibles clicking in what passed for a smile among her species. Tom Chen, your species continues to surprise me. It's a risky plan, but it just might work. Captain Blip's gelatinous form rippled with a mix of admiration and concern. It's certainly an unconventional approach. The Union Council will need some convincing, not to mention Earth's governments, and the Vraxians themselves might be resistant to the idea. Helen's eyes shone with determination. Then we'll convince them. All of them. This is our chance to turn an invasion into an opportunity for genuine understanding and growth. As the team began to hash out the details of their proposal, a new energy filled the room. The challenges ahead were daunting, but for the first time since the invasion, they felt a sense of hope and purpose that went beyond mere survival. Over the next few hours, they worked tirelessly to craft their proposal. Tom and Lisa focused on designing a curriculum that would introduce Vraxians to the diversity of human cultures, while Helen and Zix tackled the diplomatic and security concerns. Finally, as the sun began to set over Washington, D.C., still bearing the scars of battle, they presented their plan to a joint session of Earth's newly formed United Global Council and representatives from the Galactic Union. The chamber was a stark contrast of old and new. The grand architecture of human governance melded with advanced alien technology. As Tom stepped up to the podium, he felt the weight of history on his shoulders. Distinguished representatives of Earth and the Galactic Union, he began, his voice steady despite his nerves. We stand at a crossroads. The Vraxian invasion brought us to the brink of destruction, but it also catapulted us into a new era of interstellar awareness. Now we have a choice to make. Do we meet our former enemies with fear and suspicion, or do we seize this opportunity to forge a new path? As Tom laid out their proposal for a cultural exchange program, he could see the mix of emotions playing across the faces of both humans and aliens. Skepticism, intrigue, hope, and fear all warred for dominance. When he finished, there was a moment of stunned silence. Then, the chamber erupted in a cacophony of voices, questions and concerns flying from all directions. It was Zix who stepped forward next, her alien presence commanding immediate attention. I came to Earth to study a simple human custom, she chittered, her translator conveying the passion in her voice. What I found instead was a species of incredible resilience, creativity, and compassion. The very qualities that allowed humanity to resist the Vraxian invasion are the same qualities that make this proposal not just possible, but essential. As the debate raged on, Lisa provided historical context, drawing parallels to Earth's own history of conflict resolution through cultural understanding. Helen addressed the scientific and technological aspects, outlining safeguards and potential benefits. Hours passed, arguments were made and countered, compromises were reached and discarded. As the discussions stretched into the night, it became clear that this decision would shape the course of Earth's future in the galactic community. Finally, as dawn broke over the horizon, a consensus was reached. Earth would extend an invitation to the Vraxian delegation, not just for peace talks, but for a pioneering cultural exchange program. As the weary but exhilarated team left the chamber, they were met by Captain Blip. His gelatinous form rippled with what seemed to be pride. Well done, all of you. The Union Council has agreed to support your proposal. Now comes the hard part, convincing the Vraxians. The next day, as the Vraxian delegation entered Earth's orbit under the watchful eyes of the Union fleet, a small group gathered in a secure communications center. Tom, Zix, Lisa, Helen, and Captain Blip waited anxiously as the connection was established. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the imposing figure of the Vraxian ambassador. His color-shifting carapace rippled with barely contained emotion as he began to speak. Greetings, humans and representatives of the Galactic Union. I am Ambassador Kroll of the Vraxian Empire. We come seeking reconciliation. The words seemed to cost the ambassador great effort, his pride warring with the reality of his empire's defeat. Tom stepped forward, his voice calm and measured. "Ambassador Kroll, we welcome you in a spirit of peace. We have a proposal for you, one that we believe can benefit both our peoples." As Tom outlined their plan for cultural exchange, he could see the ambassador's expression shift from skepticism to intrigue. When he finished, there was a long moment of silence. Finally, Ambassador Kroll spoke, his voice a low rumble. "You surprise us humans. We came expecting demands for reparations, for punitive measures. Instead, you offer understanding." Six stepped forward, her alien presence, a reminder of the diverse galaxy they all inhabited. "Ambassador, I too once came to Earth seeking to understand. What I found changed me profoundly. We're offering you and your people the same opportunity." The ambassador's carapace rippled through a series of colors as he considered the proposal. "It is unconventional. Many in the Empire will resist such an idea, as will many on Earth," Helen added, her voice firm but compassionate. "But that's precisely why it's necessary. Real peace isn't just about treaties and borders. It's about understanding each other." After what felt like an eternity, Ambassador Kroll nodded, his massive form seeming to relax slightly. "Very well. We accept your proposal. Let this be the beginning of a new chapter in the history of our peoples." As the transmission ended, a cheer went up from the assembled group. They had done it, taken the first step towards turning an invasion into an unprecedented opportunity for interstellar cooperation. In the months that followed, Earth became a hub of activity unlike anything in its history. The first group of Raxian exchange participants arrived, greeted by a mixture of trepidation and curiosity from the human population. Tom, Lisa, and Helen found themselves at the forefront of this grand experiment, guiding both humans and Vraxians through the complex process of cultural integration. There were mishaps, of course, misunderstandings that sometimes verged on diplomatic incidents, but with each challenge overcome, the bonds between the former enemies grew stronger. Zix, for her part, became something of a celebrity both on Earth and in the wider galactic community. Her original mission to study human hygiene practices had evolved into a groundbreaking model for interspecies cultural exchange. She'd found herself lecturing at universities across the planet, her unique perspective bridging the gap between human and alien understanding. 1 year after the invasion, a ceremony was held in the rebuilt National Mall to commemorate both the lives lost and the new era of cooperation that had emerged from the ashes of conflict. As Tom stood on the stage, looking out at the sea of faces, human, Vraxian, and a dozen other alien species, he felt a sense of awe at how far they had come. "A year ago, we faced extinction," he began, his voice carrying across the hushed crowd. "We fought not just for our lives, but for our way of life, for our right to exist as we are, human, in all our complicated, messy, beautiful humanity." He paused, his eyes finding Zix in the front row. "But in our darkest hour, we found that we were not alone in the universe. We discovered friends in the most unexpected places and learned that even our enemies could become allies if we have the courage to extend a hand in understanding." As Tom's speech continued, weaving a vision of a future where Earth stood as a shining example of interstellar cooperation, Zix felt a warmth in her thorax. She thought back to that first, fumbling encounter in Tom's bathroom, marveling at how a simple mission to study human hygiene had set in motion events that reshaped the galaxy. The ceremony concluded with the unveiling of a monument, a towering sculpture that blended human and alien artistic styles. At its base, a small plaque bore a simple inscription: "From curiosity comes understanding. From understanding comes peace." As the crowds began to disperse, Tom found Zix waiting for him at the edge of the stage. "So," he said with a grin, "was your mission to study human hygiene practices a success?" Zix's antennae twitched with amusement. "I'd say it exceeded all expectations. Though I'm still not entirely sure about the purpose of rubber ducks." They shared a laugh, the sound mingling with the excited chatter of humans and aliens alike as they filed out of the mall. As they walked together towards the setting sun, Zix realized that while her official mission had long since evolved, her journey of discovery was far from over. Earth, with all its complexities and contradictions, had become more than just a subject of study. It had become a second home, a place of endless fascination and newfound friendship. And as for humanity, well, they had proven themselves to be the most curious, resilient, and surprising species in the galaxy. As the first stars began to twinkle in the twilight sky, Zix looked forward to the adventures yet to come. The universe, she realized, was full of wonders waiting to be discovered. And sometimes, the greatest discoveries begin with the simplest questions, like wondering why humans spend so much time in the shower. The end.